Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I'm your host of My Thoughts Exactly. And before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Fridays as well. So make sure you are subscribed. And with that being said, you guys, happy Friday. I hope you guys have had a great week so far. And if you haven't, guess what? It's Friday. It's the weekend. You made it. We're here. Happy Friday. I am so excited to sit down and talk to you guys. I feel like I have not sat down. I don't know why I feel like this. I know we just talked last week, but I feel like we have so much to catch up on. I feel like partially it's because, and if you don't watch The Bachelorette, like you're going to be like, Savannah, shut up. But you guys, I have been waiting to sit down on this couch and talk to you about the Bachelorette finale. I am filming this on Wednesday and you guys are seeing it on Friday, and the Bachelorette premiered, or the finale premiered last night, and oh my God, I'm mad, just to say the least. If you guys have not watched it yet, or if you like are planning on watching it, if you just haven't seen it yet and you want to skip through, because I'm about to just spoil it for you, but I am so frustrated, you guys. I have never been so mad at someone that I do not know. I do not know this man. I do not know Devin, but I am so upset with him. I feel like Devin just pulled the biggest gotcha in Bachelor Nation history. Like, I feel like the entire time Devin is saying all the right things. He's just like the smooth, suave guy. And I know some people had their differing opinions on Devin. I think that for the most part, everyone that I knew hated Devin. And I think that I was the only one that really liked Devin. Like, people in my circle who I would talk to about the show with, they would be like, no, Devin sucks. Like, he's horrible. I loved him. And I think that that might say something about my taste in men more than anything. But I really liked him, like, for the whole time, minus the first episode, because I think they painted him as the villain. But after that, I was obsessed. I was on the Devin train. I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. He's so great. He's perfect. He's this, he's that. He's like got it all going on. He's obsessed with Jen. He loves Jen. He wants to marry Jen. He's like having a borderline mental breakdown in Hawaii because he wants Jen to tell her, or Jen to tell him that he loves her, which, now looking back, might have just been an ego thing more than anything else, because like The Bachelor, if you didn't see it on the episode before the finale, which was the final 3 dates, like the fantasy suite dates, Devin really had a hard time, and he was like having, a really, really big struggle with not hearing from Jen that she was in love with him. And it was like this whole ordeal, and he made it so dramatic. It was this huge thing, and it really made you feel some sort of sympathy. Like, it made you feel sorry for the guy, when in reality, that is the premise of the show. For the longest time, the lead would never say I love you until the very end. And then somewhere along the line, I think it was like in Ben Higgins' season, he was the one who kind of broke that mold and started saying I love you back to the contestants, which was a big, big change from what the show normally did. But again, like, this is The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. This is kind of like the vibe of the show. This is what happens. But we see pretty much every season there is a contestant who starts to kind of crumble under the pressure that is this show. And that's what it appeared to have been happening with Devin. And then Devin goes to Jen. She finally tells him, like, yeah, I love you, whatever. He then gets on this high. It's like this whole thing. And then we go to the finale, or we go to the after the final rose, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't prioritize you enough. The pressures got to me, and I regret that I, informed you too late. Like, he said something that was so unbelievably insane to say, like the craziest thing to say in regards to like his reasoning why he like didn't tell Jen this to begin with. Like, he's telling Jen, oh, I had doubts all season. Oh, I was like, I felt pressured to get engaged all season, and I just, I kept those doubts inside of me. Where were those doubts? I would have loved to have seen them, because if there was one person where I felt like there is not a doubt in the world that he is going to propose to Jen at the end of this, it was Devin. I feel bamboozled. I'm mad at Devin. I know it's like a stupid thing, and I know that's like a go touch grass kind of scenario, but I am so pissed at him. I'm so mad at him. And also, I don't know if you guys watched after the final rose, but at the end, and sorry, I know that this is like so not what we're talking about today, but like I just have no one else to talk about this with, like in regards to just like getting everything. Like, I haven't been able to like have an in-person conversation with someone about the Bachelorette finale, and I just needed to talk to you guys about it. But on After the Final Rose, when they made Jen sit with that man on the couch and rewatch the proposal, that was cruel. Whoever decided that, jail time to that producer, because that is an insane thing to make that poor girl do. She is sobbing on this couch, hysterical. I don't think I've seen a Bachelorette be so like vulnerable and expressive with her emotions like that, like in terms of like her crying and everything. Like she was inconsolable at certain points, and like understandably so. I would be losing it. She's better than me because I would have walked off that stage. I would have been yelling at Devin. I would have been horrible. I would have been so bad. She is so much better than me. She's so much stronger than me. I just like could not sit there like that and like listen to the bullshit that was coming out of his mouth and just like, answer like politely, which she did give it to him. I will give her that. Like she read him for filth as she should. I'm just saying that I probably would have done it in a much more petty way. But regardless, please let me know what you think of the Bachelor finale. I would love to know. Would love to know. And oh my God, I could go on forever about it, but we're not here to talk about that. I will digress. Anyways, you guys, as you guys can tell by the title of today's episode, we have something different going on today. We have something different to talk about, and that is my journey getting off of birth control 1 year later. If you guys remember, we sat in this spot on this chair about a year ago, and I explained to you guys how I had gotten off her hormonal birth control, and I cannot believe it's already been a year. I can't, time is flying, you guys, and it's freaking me out. But I talked to you about this about a year ago, and I have been getting some messages recently, just more recently, basically saying like, I know you got off of birth control a year ago. Can you give us an update? Like, what is the 1 year update now that you've been off of it? Which I do think is a fair thing to like wait 1 year to give you like a full update, because I think that it really does take that long sometimes to like have everything regulate out, your hormones, all of the things. So I did want to wait a full year before giving you like a real rundown of what I've experienced when getting off of hormonal birth control. I do want to say, and I do want to preface this episode and just kind of put a disclaimer on it. And this might be a no duh, but I feel like I'm going to have to say it anyways. I'm not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I am not here to, tell you, this is what happened to me, so it's going to happen to you. Obviously, everyone is going to have very, very different responses and reactions to getting off of birth control. Not everyone is going to feel the same. Not everyone is going to have the same experience. Not everyone is going to go through the same things when getting off of hormonal birth control. And so I just want to put that out there that, with my experience and what I went through with it, I definitely, I know that might not be how it would work for you, or just as much as like someone else that gets off birth control is going to be different than my experience. The experiences are not going to be identical, obviously, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there that this is a very personal decision, and it's one that I definitely recommend you do your own research on. It's one that I recommend you again, read articles about it, learn what to expect. I did a lot of research before I ended up making the decision to get off of birth control, and that will lead me to why I got off of birth control. If you remember in the last episode, pretty much the main reason I got off of birth control was just because I had been on it for about 10 years. I was taking a hormonal birth control. I took a birth control pill every single day. It was called Belcultra, and I took it every day, and I was taking it for 10 years. I think, gotten on three or four different actual like types of pills. Like Belcultra was the one that I was on last, but I think I was on like Yaz at some point, and then there was like another one that I was on, but Belcultra was the last one that I was on. And all in all, I had been on hormonal birth control for about 10 years. Like I said, I believe I started it when I was in my senior year of high school. And I remember getting on birth control personally for me was a much bigger shift than getting off of birth control. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but my main reason for getting off of birth control to begin with was because I wanted to give my body a break. I wanted to give my system a break, give my hormones a break. I felt like I had just been pumping myself with hormones for over 10 years and all of the things that are in a birth control pill. And the more I started to think about it, the more, just quite frankly, it started to freak me out. I started getting anxious about, just what birth control was actually doing to me. And I recommend you do your research on that. I'm not going to go into like all of the details about what it can do to your body, but if you do your research on it, you will be able to pretty much find everything that you need to know out there. But for me, I wanted to give my body a break. I didn't want to be pumping anything into my body anymore. Like I just kind of wanted to give my body a rest. And that was really important to me. And I believe it was actually my mom who was the one who really opened up that conversation for me. She was the one who said, like, how are you feeling on birth control? Do you think that you might possibly want to get off of it? And we had a very open-ended conversation about it, which I felt really, really grateful to be able to have with her, because it was just, someone in my life who obviously I look up to so much, being able to like really look to her and be like, I don't know, like, what do you think? And then we had a really good conversation about it, where ultimately I decided that I do want to get off of birth control. And I'm very, very happy that I did. And probably from the decision that I made to get off of it to me actually getting off of it, I would say that was probably like a month. But what I also will say is the lead up to making that decision was several months. I didn't wake up one day and was like, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to get off of it. And, you know, let's see how this goes. Like I was very meticulous in making the decision. I thought about it a lot. I talked to Hayden. I talked to my mom. I talked to my friends. I talked to my doctor. I talked to a lot of people about it just so I could be prepared. I also did a lot of research. I was reading a ton of articles about what to expect when you get off of birth control, hormonal birth control. And, again, that's going to look different for everyone because everyone's experience on birth control is so different. And there are so many different types of birth control out there. The pill, IUD, I think that there's like a shot that you can take. There's a little device you can put in your arm. There's a bunch of different methods out there. And so that will probably, play a factor as well. But I did a lot of research going into it just to see what to expect. I did not want to walk in blindly, and I'm very glad that I did that. However, what I will say is that when I went into the research and really the information that I took out of that, a lot of people were saying that getting off of birth control was going to be this big, scary thing, that it was going to be this giant change. It was going to take forever for, my hormones to get back to normal, for my cycle to regulate. It was going to be this whole ordeal. And it was going to, I was going to have these crazy mood swings and my weight was going to fluctuate and my skin was going to be horrible. Like all of the things that I was reading, it reminded me of when you hear like a commercial on TV for medication, and then at the very end of it, they talk really fast and they're like, side effects may include like stroke, heart attack, death, like all of these things that seem like so horrible. And that's what I felt like I was reading in these articles. And it kind of did make me worry a little bit because I was like, oh, like, do I want to do that? Like, I don't know. That sounds horrible. Why would I want to do that? Maybe I should just stay on it. But after reading more into it and then talking to my doctor and really, doing more extensive research, just far beyond the surface level stuff, I realized that I would rather, have to go through all of the list of side effects that are being named to get to where I want to be, which is to not be on birth control anymore. So to me, it was worth it. And I made that decision. So again, it was several months of thinking about it before I ultimately made the decision. And then I remember the date that I got off of birth control, that I like stopped taking it, was August 15th of 2023. So that was when I got off. So I've officially been off for a year and like, I don't know, a year and 3 weeks or something. I'm not sure how that math checks out, but I will say, like I mentioned, everyone kind of warns you that it's going to be this horrible thing. And this is kind of where I was worried about coming on here and talking about my experience getting off of birth control, because in all of my research, everyone warns you about all of these crazy side effects that can happen and that have happened to other people. For me personally, I did not have a lot of the side effects that a lot of these articles and the research that I was doing, like the scary stuff that would normally deter me from getting off of something like that. I did not experience that. I consider my experience getting off of birth control one that was relatively smooth sailing. I did not have a lot of the side effects. I didn't notice a lot of crazy big changes. Yes, it took time for everything to regulate and, you know, get a new baseline, and it's an adjustment period. Your body is going to go through an adjustment period to detox all of those hormones that were being pumped into your body for so long. But at the same time, as far as like these crazy, weight fluctuations or like crazy skin fluctuations. I didn't necessarily have that. And so that is also why I've been hesitant to come on and talk about this, because I consider my experience, I feel very lucky, is what I'm trying to say. I feel very lucky that I had a smooth experience in getting off of birth control, because I know not everyone has that. But I also think it's important for me to come on and just give my perspective on how everything went for me, because everyone is so different. And my experience might not be yours and yours might not be mine, but we can at least talk about, some of the, some of the, what's the word? Some of the commonalities in those experiences. So again, even though I feel like I had a relatively smooth ride in getting off of birth control, that does not mean that there was not an adjustment period. There definitely was. And I want to kind of walk you through what that looked like for me. I would say the biggest thing that I noticed when getting off of hormonal birth control was my mood swings. That one was definitely the most prominent for me, because if you think about it, your hormones have to regulate. Your hormones are taking time to balance themselves out. They have been pumped, your body has been pumped with hormones from your birth control for a while. So now once it leaves, your body's like, okay, short circuiting a little bit, trying to figure out what its normal balance is. And while my body was going through that, I definitely experienced moments where I was like, why do I feel like I want to punch a wall? Why do I feel like I literally could, it was not great. It was not great, but that was the biggest one for me that I had noticed was, and it wasn't consistent. It wasn't like an everyday thing, but it definitely was like a 1 or 2 times a month type of deal, maybe three, where I literally felt like I could breathe fire. I was so angry for no reason. And I was really lucky because obviously, like, everyone around me knew what was happening, like Hayden in specific. Like, I was very, very vocal and communicative with him as to everything that I was feeling along the way. And he was very receptive and just kind of like there to support, because he knew that this was obviously a change and that my body was going through a change. And when getting off of it, I would definitely let him know. And I think that he could probably tell too. I don't think I even had to let him know if I was, feeling those feelings of just, the mood swings. I don't even know what you would call it. Like, it's not anger, but it was literally just like every little thing ticked me off. Every little thing bothered me. It did not matter. Someone could just be breathing in the wrong direction and I would lose my mind. That was probably the one thing where it was noticeable for me. I was like, oh, okay, this is a result of what I have done, which is getting off of the birth control. So that was the first thing that I noticed in terms of the side effects, in terms of, me being able to point out like, oh, this is happening because of this. But I also want to talk about, what I'm doing in place of the hormonal birth control. Sorry, for whatever reason, that's a hard word to say, hormonal birth control. There's something about it that's like doesn't doesn't come off smoothly. But I knew when I got off of birth control that I also did not want to just, completely go cut and dry and just walk in blind and like not know anything about my cycle and ovulation and, all of the types, the stages and the phases of your cycle. I knew that I wanted to be proactive in that. And I didn't just want to stop and get off of birth control and not do anything and just kind of like play a guessing game every time. I have too much anxiety for that. That was not going to work for me. So what I decided to do is I got on Natural Cycles, which if you don't know is the first FDA approved birth control app that tracks your cycle through a variety of different ways. One is through a thermometer where you would wake up every morning and take your basal body temperature, and the thermometer connects to the app and you're able to connect it that way. And through your temperature, the app is able to figure out where you are in your cycle and, put you at, give you a little bit of understanding as to where you're at and what to expect. The other way to do that is through the Oura ring, which is what I'm wearing right now. And if you guys see, I don't know if I actually showed it to you in the last time, like in last year's episode, but this is the Oura ring and you buy it separately than the app. And so the Oura ring, people use it for not birth control reasons too. People use it just to track their sleep cycle. That's really what it was first advertised for before they linked up with Natural Cycles. You would track your sleep cycle. You can also track your steps on it. You can track your activity on it. I don't think that the activity part is actually as accurate as it could be, but it is really great at tracking your sleep and figuring out how much sleep you're getting. They rate your sleep at the end of every night. It's great. We love the Aura ring. But what I use it for is for the natural cycles purposes. I don't think I would ever use this if I did not have natural cycles. Let's just say that. So I purchased the Aura ring, and you purchase the ring and then you purchase natural cycles. And then I do think that there's like a fee. It's like either an annual fee or a monthly fee. I think you can choose which one you want to do. And then once you get your ring, you hook it up to the app and you're off to the races. That is how it works. And so instead of the thermometer where you wake up every morning and you take your basal body temperature, instead you fall asleep with the ring on. The ring is able to connect to the app. It's able to take your temperature through the app or take your temperature through the ring and then connect that to the app where the app will then tell you where you are in your cycle. So that is what I chose to do. That is the route that I chose to go. And I did know several people before about a year ago who did the same thing. And I was able to watch YouTube videos and again, did my own research on it. I'm just going to like drill that into you guys, do your own research before really doing anything in life. That was one thing that my mom always taught me is to always do my own research, before doing anything. And I really took that to heart when making this decision. So I watched a lot of videos on the Oura ring and I definitely prefer the Oura ring. I did go back and forth in the beginning being like, oh, maybe I would like to do the temperature thermometer thing. But I think that that would have actually been so much more of a task because with this ring, it's like all I have to do is wear it. That's strictly it. You do have to charge it. It comes with a charger. And so you do have to charge it. The charge lasts, if you get it to full battery, which essentially it takes like 20 to 30 minutes, I have found, the battery life on the ring will last about 4 to 5 days. So you do have to charge it, but other than that, all you got to do is wear it. And then you hook it up to your app every morning. You open up your app, and I honestly have had so much fun doing it. I feel like the Natural Cycles app has become a part of like my morning social media routine. When you open your phone and you check your emails, you check Instagram, you check whatever social media platform you want to check. And Natural Cycles has definitely become one of those places for me. So I really do enjoy connecting the ring to my app every morning. And truthfully, my favorite part about Natural Cycles, I know this sounds like an ad, I promise you it's not. My favorite part about it is how much information they give you about your cycle. Not only do they tell you, what phase you're in, and they give you kind of a blueprint as to what to expect for the month. They tell you when you're probably ovulating the most. They give you a lot of information on this app. And that's my favorite part because I truthfully believe that knowledge is power. I've said it so many times and I believe it in every scenario. And I think that that holds so true, especially in this instance. The more knowledge that you have about your body, about, what's happening to your body essentially, is your own power. The more knowledge that you can have, the better understanding that you can have, the more that you know about what to expect, the more it will make sense as to why you feel certain ways and why certain things are happening. So to me, that's why I really like Natural Cycles. I'll actually pull up the app right now and just tell you guys really like what it lays out. So you open the Natural Cycles app and there's several different like categories on the bottom. It will show you where you're at today, and then it also tells you your calendar, and the calendar essentially is exactly that. It's a month by month calendar that will tell you, when it is expected for you to have your highest ovulation days. It also tells you, it breaks it up by red and green days. Red days are the days where they advise you to use as much precaution as possible when it pertains to sex. And then the green days are the ones where they say you can be a little bit more lenient about it. You don't have to worry as much. And so that is basically how it's broken up. And it also tells you when they believe that you're going to start your period, all of those things. And then you go over to the messages category, which is the category next to the calendar. And this is where it gives you just a bunch of information. If you're watching me on YouTube, you might be able to see that. I don't know. But it tells you, a lot of information about the different phases of the cycle. You have your luteal phase, you have your ovulation phase. It will tell you a lot of information about those phases, all of the phases, and will just give you a better understanding as to what your body is going through at different stages. And it also has a learn category. Again, like I said, knowledge is power, and it's there to give you a bunch of information, which I think is so great. And then as far as, logging in your stuff for the day, logging in your statistics, if you will, basically you go and you will press the plus button. There is a plus button in the middle of the screen. You press it and you can basically just log all of the stuff, all of your stats. It basically will there's a mood board. You can pick what mood you're feeling, if you're feeling happy, confident, calm, energetic, excited, or if you have mood swings. You also can log in your like how your skin is looking. You can log in if you have any pain. You can log in if you took an ovulation test and if it was positive or negative. There's so many things that you can do in the Natural Cycles app. And again, I am so happy that something like Natural Cycles exists. Again, I know that this sounds like an ad. I promise you it's not. But I really am really glad that something like this exists, because I think it's so important just to have a general understanding as to what's going on in your body. And if I didn't have Natural Cycles and if I was just winging it, I'm sure that that works for some people. But for me, I wanted something, some sort of transition when it came to getting off of birth control. I didn't want to just do nothing. And truthfully, I believe that with Natural Cycles, I have so much better of an understanding of my body and just myself in general, like my overall health, my women's health, because of it. It just really has made such a big difference and a big impact in the way that I look at my own health. So, with this all being said, now what I want to do in this episode is I asked you guys on the My Thoughts Exactly Instagram page what questions you had specifically. I felt like that would be better in order to just like answer your questions right off of the bat, rather than sitting here and kind of giving you like my whole spiel on everything. I'd rather just answer your questions directly, since this was an episode that you guys had been wanting. So, I opened up the questions to you guys and we're about to hop in. So, now that you've heard kind of like my why as to why I got off of birth control, what the general experience was like, we're obviously going to get more into it with these questions and get a little bit more specific and detailed, and also what I do in place of a hormonal birth control. So let's jump right on in to these questions. The first one says, how long did it take for your period to be regular? I would say it took me probably, this is actually kind of crazy. And again, it's just so hard because everyone's experience was so different. I would say that with the first few months, my cycle was quote unquote very regular. It was extremely regular. However, once I got to about months 5, 6, 7, things started to get a little unregular. So it was weird. It almost worked backwards. I thought that it would be irregular in the beginning and then become regular. However, it was more regular in the beginning and then it kind of switched up and became a little irregular. Again, with Natural Cycles, they're able to give you an estimated prediction on what day you're going to start your period, and you're able to see that like through each month. And what I've seen is that my period kind of has shifted to where it's predicted to start kind of a week later than it started the previous month. So let's say if, one month I started the 15th, then the next month I'll start at like the 23rd, which again, I don't necessarily know why that is, but I've kind of just continued to chalk this all up to my body is still regulating itself out and it's still trying to figure out what its normal and what its balance is. So again, it took me no time in the beginning, but then it kind of went backwards and now things have been a little bit more irregular. But again, I've talked to my doctor about it and it's been, my doctor has relayed the message to me that this is normal and this type of stuff happens, and that your body is still just trying to figure out what exactly is going on and it's trying to do. And, no one person's progress in this and no one person's experience of this is going to be linear. So I'm not too worried about it. Okay. Next one. Do you have more cravings than usual? This is very interesting because I think that one big takeaway that I have noticed is that my symptoms when pertaining to my period are a lot more intense than they were prior. When I was on hormonal birth control, I got a period like every month and a half, 2 months, and the symptoms were incredibly, like very slim, like slim to none. Like it was almost as if nothing was happening, and it lasted for about 3 days and then it was done. So it was very light, very little symptoms. However, what I noticed when getting off of it is that my symptoms skyrocketed when I got a period, because obviously there was no like birth control or anything like blocking those from happening again. I don't know what the science behind it is, but that all really got amplified once I got off of birth control. So, yes, I did experience more cravings. What's interesting for me, again, everyone is different. I know some people who have a lot more cravings or they get really hungry like the week of or when they are on their period. For me, it's always the week before. It's always, always, always the week before. I am like a bottomless pit and I will eat anything that I see and I am never satisfied. I'm never full. I'm never like not wanting to eat something. So for me, it's always the week before. And along with that, which I know this was also another question that was asked multiple times when pertaining to the symptoms of my period, my cramps got so much worse. Like I said before, while I was on birth control, I had little to no symptoms. I experienced little to no cramping. It was not something that I, had to deal with while on birth control. Before I got on birth control, my cramps were really, really bad. I would get really bad cramps. Probably the third day, I think, was always the worst. And that was something that I obviously dealt with through different, remedies, Advil, heating pads, all of the things. And I guess I just forgot what those felt like. And then when I got off of birth control and was really like, I would also say that I didn't really experience like the full effect and like the full symptoms of my period for probably like 3 to 4 months. Like, and then once that happened, so maybe like the beginning of this year, I remember having one day when I was, on my period where the cramps were so unbearable. I was on the floor. I could not do anything. I was shaking. I was throwing up. It was horrible, a horrible experience. I don't wish it on anyone. And I just remember thinking, like, oh, this is what it was like. Like this, my body's kicking it back into gear again. And so again, those symptoms of my period really came back full swing and in full effect because again, now that I'm off of birth control, there's nothing like shielding those symptoms from coming through. So now they're just, coming through tenfold. And it was like, we're back. And I was like, great. Awesome. This is what we're doing. So, yes, I do think that the cravings were a big one and then the cramping was another big one. And those were probably the two biggest symptoms that I would say I would have in pertaining to my period. All right, next one. What have you found most helpful in re-regulating your hormones? Truthfully, I really did not do much in pertaining to like outside like any supplements or any routines. Like I didn't do anything. I just kind of let my body do it on its own. I trusted that my body was going to regulate them as it needed to, and I do believe that that is exactly what happened. That's not to say that I didn't, what's funny is I don't think that I did anything, I didn't take anything. It wasn't like a medical thing where I was like taking supplements or anything like that to help re-regulate my hormones. But what I will say is I just became hyper aware of my feelings and what was going on in my body. Anything I felt, whether that was, a pain, a pinch, or just like a mental thing, I really would clock that in and I would, be aware of that. And I think by giving myself that awareness and giving myself the grace and the space to be like, okay, I'm going through an adjustment period and this is what's happening. And, this is happening because of this. It really gave me a lot of peace throughout the process because I wasn't, super stressed. I wasn't on edge. I just kind of came to terms with the fact that my body is going to take some time to adjust. And that's just the reality of the fact. And again, I didn't take any like supplements or anything that would, help speed up the process of re regulating my hormones. I just, I wanted to get every chemical out of my body. And so I didn't want to like take another supplement, natural or not, to help re regulate my hormones because I just wanted my body to be able to do it on its own. And it did. So I'm very happy with that. And I will say, when I say it did, I'm confident in that because I have gotten my hormones tested and I have gone like a lot of blood work done, and my hormones all look, very, regular. They're in the normal range. So I am happy about that. All right, moving on to the next question. What is the biggest difference when it comes to your mood? Okay, yeah. So, like I said, I had such bad mood swings in the beginning, and still to this day, I'll have like a couple here and there where it's like, oh, yeah, no, this is, I am seeing red. I could breathe fire if I really wanted to, I feel like. And I get, again, giving myself the grace to be like, Savannah, you feel like this because your body is regulating, because your body is trying to figure itself out. So giving myself the space to allow myself to feel those feelings. But again, I would say that like those mood swings that would come in once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, and they wouldn't last all day, by the way. It would be like a couple hours where I would literally want to punch a wall. And then there would be a moment where I'd be like, oh, It's all good. I don't need to punch a wall. I'm okay. Like that was the shift. And so for me, that was the biggest thing that I noticed when pertaining to my mood, which again was probably one of the biggest symptoms that I had in getting off of birth control was the mood swings and figuring out how to regulate those. So the mood definitely was a big one for me. What was the scariest and worst side effect? I'm thinking of going off and I'm specifically worried about my skin. I will say my skin, I have noticed does become more prone to breakouts. That is one thing that I will say that I have noticed and it wasn't, it's not crazy. Yeah, everyone's skin is going to be different. Everyone's skin is going to have a different reaction. For me on birth control, I would say I had a relatively, very normal skin. I didn't have a lot of breakouts on birth control, if any. Like birth control definitely helped my skin, which is one of the things that it can do. I also want to say though, prior to birth control, I didn't really have horrible skin to begin with, or I didn't have, hard to handle skin. I didn't have sensitive skin. And I think that getting off of birth control, I definitely see that my skin will have a little bit more of a reaction if it doesn't, mesh with the product that I'm using, or it will give me a breakout here and there, or it will, I'll have a pimple or something pop up, but it's not horrible, or at least it wasn't for me. It's nothing that's unmanageable. And again, it more so is hormonal acne for me. It's more so around the time of my period, and again it goes away and then it's fine. And but it's not anything that is unbearable. I would say for me the biggest side effect was the mood swings and just the symptoms pertaining to my period that became more prominent once getting off of birth control. Other than that, I don't think that there was like any big, bad, scary symptom. And to me, I think that what really helped me with the symptoms that I did have is looking at the pros and cons and seeing that, you know, being off of birth control was something that was really important to me. And I was willing to kind of face the what's it called? I was willing to face the cons or face the symptoms that were going to come from it if that meant that I was going to get off of it. So I think what's important is just like weighing out your options. Like, would you rather stay on birth control because you're scared to get off of it and see what happens? Or would you rather get off of it, see what happens? And if you're like, fuck this, I don't like it, you can always get back on it. You can always do that too. So I think that you just need to ask yourself, like, what is scarier, staying on or getting off? All right, next one. My doctor shamed me for going off of it. I finally feel human. I've been off of it for almost 2 years. Yeah, for whatever reason, there is a big stigma that the doctors like to push, and I don't necessarily know why it is. And I don't think it's every doctor. I know some doctors aren't like that. But they're definitely, I remember when I was getting off of birth control and I told my doctor, it was like a whoa. Are you sure you want to do that? I don't know if that's a great option. I don't know if you should do that. Da 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 da. And what I do want to really just emphasize for you guys is to advocate for yourself. If this is something that you want, obviously do your own research, make your own decisions, figure out what's going to be best for you, the decision that you want to make. But, advocate for yourself. If someone is giving you pushback, okay, whatever, advocate for yourself. Still choose what you want to do. Still choose what you think is going to be best for you at the end of the day, because regardless of any of the outside noise, no one else is living in your body. No one else is, having to deal with a day in and day out of what is going on in your body. And I think that it's really important to stand up for yourself in that way. I always think it's important to advocate for yourself in general, but especially medically. If you guys have been watching the vlogs, and you know that I've been going to some cardiologist appointments and I've been trying to figure out what's going on with my chest pains and my heart. And what I've learned through this process is that advocating for yourself is so, so incredibly important. And I think that this is a very, very, it's a very clear example of that. There's going to be doctors that are going to give you pushback. They're going to tell you, oh, that's not smart, or oh, you shouldn't do that, or oh, this, or oh, that. Don't listen to it. If this is what you want to do for yourself, then make that decision and make it confidently, and don't, let anyone sway you otherwise. Because like she just said, she feels, finally human after 2 years. A lot of things can happen. And, some people love birth control, and that's fine. And that's great for them. And, everyone's journey is going to be different when pertaining to birth control. But I think that if this is the decision that you want to make for yourself, then stand strong in that and just stand 10 toes down. Okay, moving on. Have you noticed a difference in your mental state and mental sharpness? I find my mind is less sharp. See, yes. And I think that, again, this just goes to show that everyone's experience is so different because for me, I do think that my mind is a lot sharper. I think that on birth control, I felt, I don't know what it's called, not like it, I just didn't feel as clear headed. I feel like getting off of birth control, I feel a lot more um just sharp, and I feel a lot more confident in the decisions that I'm making. I feel like I'm able to, work better. I feel like I'm able to concentrate better. I felt like on birth control, I really wasn't for whatever reason. I'm not really sure what the science behind that is. But for me personally, I do think that I got more clear headed, which was something that a lot of people did say. And so I was glad to see that that happened. But again, this just goes to show everyone's going to have a different journey and everyone's going to experience different things. I might feel more clear headed. You might not. You might feel less, clear headed and less sharp. I might have really bad, mood swings and you might not. Who knows? But everyone's experience is going to be different. All right, moving on. Oh, this is a good one. Did it make you lose weight? No, it did not. But I did see that a lot of people, when I was doing my research in pertaining to weight, a lot of people said that it would make you lose weight. Getting off of birth control will make you lose weight because the whole myth is that when you get on birth control, you're going to gain a bunch of weight. I do think that when I got on birth control, I did gain weight. However, when I got off of birth control, I did not lose weight. That was something that I definitely noticed because I read all of these articles where everyone was like, oh, you're going to lose all this weight and oh, you're going to drop like 5, 10 pounds and it's going to be great. Like all of these things. But it did not happen to me. I did not lose any weight, which was fine. I wasn't like, I didn't get off birth control hoping that I would. But again, after reading and reading all these articles where people were saying that, oh, you will lose weight when you get off of it, because I don't know what the science is behind it, if it's just because like when you get on you're supposed to gain and then when you get off you lose. I know some people who have gotten on it and haven't gained a single pound, so it affects everyone differently. For me personally, I did not lose any weight in getting off of birth control, so that was not something that I experienced. But again, some people probably have, clearly, if it's just been, plastered into all these articles and it's something that people have been talking about consistently, is the fact that you could have the potential to lose weight. So that is a big one as well. And then the second part of this question is, which has been asked several times, is how did it affect your libido, your sex drive, all of the things? Personally, for me, and this is just like, we are getting so, we're getting TMI here. We're getting very up close and personal, but I'm just going to say it. Birth control shot my libido to the ground. I did not have a single desire on birth control at all. And if you look it up, it's actually a thing. Birth control can decrease your libido by a lot. I also think that it was just the guys that I was dating at certain points in my life where I just like had no desire whatsoever. But that's a conversation for a different day. Birth control did shoot my libido completely. I had very little to no drive whatsoever. I did not care a single bit. It was not something that I had any, want or need for at all. When I got off of birth control, that went straight up again. It went straight up again, and it feels definitely a little bit more normal, which I don't want to say because like it's hard to say that because I felt like when I was on birth control, this was something that I really struggled with. It was the fact that I felt almost broken in a way, which is so dramatic in a sense, but I felt like there's got to be something wrong with me because like why don't I have this like, drive that everyone talks about? I did not have it. And then I got off of birth control. And once I did, I was like, oh, okay, this is what it is. And again, it's interesting to see through the different phases of your cycle, like what that looks like in each phase. I definitely feel like it comes in waves, and there's certain parts of the cycle where that drive is more prominent, at least for me. But for the most part, it did increase my drive and my libido rather than decrease it, because I don't think it could have gotten any worse than what it was when I was on birth control. It quite literally was like non-existent. So for me, it only could go up from there, and it did, which was nice. It was great. It was good. Okay, moving on. Okay, this question says, hey, Sav, have you noticed any major changes in your mental or physical health? In addition, would you ever take birth control again? I have been off birth control for over a year now and don't know if I'd take it again. Thank you. Well, first of all, the first answer to the question is no, I would not take birth control again. I feel like after realizing what my body feels like off of birth control, I wouldn't want to go back and put myself back on it, especially the hormonal birth control. I will probably be on natural cycles forever. I really do love it. And it gives me so much peace knowing all of the information that I know through the app and through the Oura ring and all of the things. So I really love natural cycles, but as far as a hormonal birth control, no, I don't think I will ever go back on a hormonal birth control. Now, for the second part of the question, which is any changes to my mental or physical health, I would say mental. I've definitely noticed, like I said, I am more clear-headed, I feel more sharp, I feel more alert, and that is something that I really am happy about because I feel like being on a hormonal birth control kind of dulled that a little bit. So that was a major change to my mental health. And then as far as my physical health goes, I really haven't noticed that much of a difference. Like I said, I didn't really lose any weight. I didn't really do any, I didn't notice any like crazy physical changes. What I will say is that I definitely notice changes pertaining to where I'm at in my cycle. I definitely recommend you guys go and look at the different what's it called? What I'm losing my mind at this point. The different phases of your cycle, because for each one, there's different things that happen in each phase of your cycle, and you are going to feel differently more than likely during each phase of your cycle because of that. Because each phase of your cycle is different, it's going to result in you feeling differently. And so I feel like physically, I have felt those changes. Like, for example, in the week leading up to my period, when I'm in my follicular phase, I believe it's called, I feel more bloated. I feel more tired. I feel more hungry. Like I said, bottomless pit. I will eat anything in sight. I feel more lethargic. That falls into the tired category, but I definitely physically feel those feelings more. So it's not necessarily a physical change to my body, but I feel the effects of being in that phase. Same of when I'm in my luteal phase, which I believe is right after your period. I feel alert. I feel like I feel great in that phase. I feel snatched. I feel awake. I feel alive. I feel like I can see it in my face. I definitely feel that. So yes, I do see things from my physical standpoint and my mental standpoint in relation to the different phases of your cycle. But at the same time, I'm not like I haven't noticed any drastic physical difference, if that makes sense. Like it's not like oh, I've dropped 20 pounds, or oh, I'm so much stronger than I once was, or oh, I got off birth control and now I can, you know, squat 300 pounds. It's not, I don't notice that. But as far as like the physical changes and the mental changes that I notice in each phase of the cycle, that is something that I can definitely point out because again, when you're on birth control, your body is basically, it has convinced itself that it is pregnant, I believe is what the science behind it is. Don't quote me on that. But because of that, you're not really going through each phase of your cycle. So you're not experiencing those symptoms. So there's that. Or at least I should say, not experiencing the symptoms as severely as you might if you were not on birth control. So that is what I have to say about that. And with that being said, you guys, we are going to cut this episode here. I hope I gave you a little bit of a better insight as to what has happened over the past year of me not being on birth control. I feel like I've just been kind of like rambling on. So hopefully it makes sense what I've been trying to say and what I've been trying to get my message across as. I would say the major takeaways that I want you to have for this episode is to always advocate for yourself, choose what's best for you, do your research, and make the decision that you want to make and that you feel is going to be the best outcome for you at the end of the day, regardless of what anyone thinks. Do not let anyone sway your decision. Do not let anyone, make you think that you should be doing something else rather than what you feel like you would want to do. I think that it's really important to just stand up for yourself in that way. And I also think it's really important to do your own research and to understand that everyone's experience and everyone's journey is going to be different. So to just not compare your journey to anyone else. I think it's very easy when, we go through something like this to kind of look around and be like, oh, well, what happened to her is going to happen to me, or, she had this, so I'm going to have it. It's like anything pertaining to like medical, really any experience in life, but some, especially pertaining to medical, it's all going to be different because everyone's body is so different and everyone's body is going to react in different ways. So try not to compare yourself or your journey to someone else's just because, they also have experienced, just because they also are going through it too. Just because they're going through the same experience doesn't mean that your journey and your reaction is going to be the same. So I would just take everything with a grain of salt, and again, just make the decision that you want to make and feel is best for you. So with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Again, if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I'm your host. Make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly on the podcast every single Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be back next week with a brand new one, and I will see you there. Bye, guys.